Welcome to the Ultimate College Application Guide. So just to start, I'm not a college counselor, nor do I claim to be, but I have gone through the process of applying to college and being accepted into college. So these are just kind of my personal thoughts and recommendations through my own personal experience. Starting with kind of my overall thoughts on high school. Freshman year, you shouldn't worry at all, really. Just pick a general field. Maybe you want to do something in medicine, but not exactly sure. That's a great start. Somewhere in science, great start. Somewhere in the arts, anything like that. Those are perfectly fine to have freshman year. Sophomore year is where you want to start narrowing it down. Maybe you knew you wanted to do science freshman year, but now you know for sure you want to do marine biology. Once you narrow it down, you'll start finding schools, and I'll get to that eventually, but then you'll go on your college visits in the summer between sophomore and junior year. Junior year, you were entirely too busy to be going on college visits, which is why I would recommend them sophomore year. Junior year is your grind year. This is your year to get your GPA up. This is your year to do the SATs, take the ACT, do whatever tests are available to you, take your IB, AP, whatever other else classes, high-level classes that your school offers. This will be the most difficult year of your high school career. Just keep that in mind. It was a very, very hard shift from sophomore to junior year, and I wasn't prepared for it. Last year, senior year, you don't really have to worry that much. Really just maintaining what you accomplished in junior year. Make sure you say no to senioritis if you feel like you are starting to slip and not really care as much. You need to just get on it. Just get on it and keep up what you got, or even better, boost your GPA and boost your grades while you can. So next we're gonna go on to how to choose a college to go to. First is major-wise. So is your major offered at all at the colleges that you're looking at? Are the requirements for your major well developed? Does it just seem like, 2 classes, or are there a bunch of different options for you to choose from? Do they have accelerated master's programs? And what degree are you ultimately seeking? So if you're looking to go get a, let's say, master's, you wouldn't really be able to do that normally at a small college because they might not offer that. Or a PhD. Most PhDs, you would probably have to go to a bigger university to be able to obtain those. So just keep that in mind. General location, what country is it in if you're going out of the country, what state or province is it in if you're within the same country, and what city is it in within that state or province. So, those are things to keep in mind. Is it really close to home? Is it really far away? Is it too close to home? So maybe you already live really close to a college campus. That's something to keep in mind. What's the weather like? Is it different from where you are now? We'll get to more on that later. And then what is the time and financial cost of travel? So is it really worth paying for a plane ticket from one city to another for the time of it? Or would it be more cost efficient to just drive there, even though you might take up a lot more time? Just keep those things in mind. Next is the location type. Is it rural, urban, or suburban? And what kind of transportation will you have and need accordingly? I can't really talk to rural schools because it can really depend. Urban schools, for the most part, you will not need a car. Everything is so close together in a city that you wouldn't need a car. You might need to take a bus. But a lot of schools will either provide a bus or will allow you to use city wide transportation, which will get you to even further places than just the campus in the city. So keep that in mind. A suburban campus, you might want a car, but it also depends on if the school will allow you to. So keep that in mind. Next is the size of a school. So is it a small school? Is it a medium school, large school, or huge school? Small is anywhere less than 5,000. Medium is 5,000 to 15,000. Large is 15,000 to 30,000. And huge is 30,000 or more. For reference, the largest school by enrollment is Texas A&M. And they have over 70,000 students, which is just an absolutely wild number compared to some schools that I thought were big. Next, we have the difference between public and private schools. A public school is typically larger, less expensive, more well known, and they have a lot more resources since they're publicly funded, and yeah, tax money goes into it. And then private schools are typically a lot smaller. They would cost a lot more, but there can often be a lot of opportunities that come from them. Especially after you graduate, you might be able to enter an industry a lot faster from a private school because of the connections you'll be able to make. But they're also often very competitive to get into, just depending on where it is. Next is affiliations. We'll start with HBCU, HSI, and TCU, which is historically black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, and tribal colleges and universities. So these obviously apply to 3 different demographics of minorities in the United States. I'm sure there's equivalents to these in other countries as well. I'm speaking on the US specifically here. But these are something you definitely might want to look into. As a black student, I didn't get to look into HBCUs as much as I wish I did. But here are just some popular ones down here. Like you can see Howard over here, Florida A&M, Alabama A&M. Just look into them if you can. Same with HSIs and TCUs. If that's something that interests you, and even if it doesn't interest you, you still might want to look into them. Next is think about what your school is known for. So if you're maybe majoring in medicine and you hear a school has really great medicine programs, that might be something you want to go for. Or maybe you're looking into some type of sports and a school is known for having a really good football team. Maybe you're looking to get recruited by them. That's something that you might want to think about. Next is, do you want to go to a religious school? A lot of people want to go to religious schools and continue a kind of religious tradition. That's totally fine. There's plenty of religious colleges, although they're probably a lot smaller and often they're private. What conference is your school in? This is something I wish I would have learned about a lot sooner. I didn't know conferences were a thing. So if you can see here, one of the schools that I applied to, let's just look at the ACC. The ACC is a lot more known for being academically driven rather than sports driven. I applied to University of Pittsburgh right here, Pitt, but schools that are similar to it would be Virginia Tech, Miami, I believe that's Louisville, NC State, Syracuse, UVA, so University of Virginia. I think that's Florida State and UNC, so University of North Carolina. A lot of these schools would be very similar, so if you're the type of person who really loved Pitt, you might want to apply to some of these other ones. There's a slide about talking about what I wish I would have done. One of the things that I wish I would have done is applied to schools within the same conference. For me, I personally really love Michigan State, but out of the entire Big Ten, I only applied to Michigan State and Penn State. So I would recommend applying to a lot of schools within the same conference if there's one that you particularly like. Next is your school more known for sports or academics. Schools typically are one or the other. It's very hard to balance both. For example, the SEC schools are often very sports driven. UGA, very sports driven. Tennessee, sports. LSU, sports. But there are some within the conference like Vanderbilt, which is very academically focused, and they're very notoriously bad at sports. So schools have a very hard time balancing both because they'll put a lot of funding into one thing and not the other. So just keep that in mind. And next, what organizations are big? Is it sports? Do people go to the sports games a lot? Is it Greek life? Are there a lot of little clubs? Are there very few clubs? Just keep those types of things in mind as well. And lastly, what's the school's reputation? We can see at the bottom the Ivy League schools. These are often known for, being some of the smartest minds in the United States, but they all have, certain connotations within the Ivy League. For example, UPenn is known as the social Ivy League, so that's something to keep in mind. And like I said, Vanderbilt has the connotation of having very smart students and being very academically focused. So just keep those things in mind again when applying. Here's some college resources. I'm just listing out a whole bunch. When I applied, I only really used Naviance, which is it's available through high schools, but I don't think you can get an individual account. So if your school doesn't offer it to you, I don't think you'd be able to use it. U.S. News is helpful, but they need you to like sign up. College Data was pretty helpful. Princeton Review was helpful. And lastly, College Board, which I wish I would have had, and I'll explain why next. But if you can, use the College Board, like College Finder. It's very, very useful. And then to compare colleges, I would use Niche. They have everything kind of listed out with a grade. So certain schools would be given like an A or an A plus or C or D minus or whatever. And it's a really easy way to compare schools just overall. And there's also a way you can compare them side by side, as well as College Simply. You can compare side by side, and I'll leave the resources, like the links to all of these below, if you're interested. And next is the type of schools to apply to, and this is the reason why I really loved the College Board one. It gives you a safety, target, and reach school. I think it might call the target schools match. But same concept. A safety school is where you are above their demographic. So maybe you're a B student and this school is like a C school. You would be above their demographic. It would be your safety school. A target school would be where you're in their demographic. So if you're a B student, you would go apply to a B school. And then reaches would be where you are below their demographic. And you can reach as far as you want. If you are a D student, you can apply to Harvard if you want to. There's no reason not to apply to reach schools. Because honestly, the worst that happens is they reject you and you're just expecting to be rejected anyway. So, yeah, I would suggest like having a lot more target and reach schools than safety schools, but still keep a few safety schools. Next is applying. I would take the SAT and ACT if possible. Some schools don't allow you to submit those scores at all. Some schools require that you submit them. It just really depends on which school. I would open a Common App account. That way you can just fill out a form one time and the majority of your form will be able to be used at pretty much any school. Some schools do require you to write like little extra essays and whatever, but if you have a Common App essay and fill in all your information, you can use it for a ton of schools at one time. The self-reported academic record, or SRAR, is also very important. Some schools require you to have them. I believe it was Penn State that I applied to where they needed this, and I didn't know what it was or why, and it severely delayed me being able to submit my application. So just figure it out. Basically, it's like a transcript, except you have to write it for them. I still don't understand why they have you do it instead of just taking your transcript, but oh well. And then lastly is, well, not lastly, but next is getting letters of recommendation. If you want to go into biology and you know you want to go into biology in high school, have your biology teacher write it for you, especially if you're a good student in the class. If not, just get a teacher that you were really good in their class and have a teacher that will be like, wow, your work ethic was really great in this class. Just a teacher that you know will write you a good letter, but especially if it's in the same field that you're looking into, that could really help. Next is your transcript. Some schools require your junior year transcript, senior year transcript, first semester senior year transcript, second semester junior year. Like, it all just depends on what school it is. But yeah, be prepared to have your transcript sent in. I would apply to anywhere between 5 and 15 schools, which I know is a very large range. But this is online generally the consensus that I was able to find. I've seen as low as 4 schools and as many as 24. So I think 5 to 15 is a much more reasonable range. For me, I believe I applied to 7 schools, 7 or 8. The sweet spot seems to be 8 for most people, but just keep in mind you want to have at least one from each category. So at least one safety, one target, and one reach. Probably 2 of each of those, so 6 would be a good minimum to have. And I'll get more onto which schools I applied to later. Next is tours. Tours are very important when deciding on which college to go to. The weather is an important factor you should think about, especially if you're coming from somewhere that has a certain type of weather and you're going somewhere with a completely different type. So let's say you're from Florida and you're used to Florida weather, like you're used to it being hot all the time. If you're going to a school in Wisconsin, just be prepared to be cold, or be prepared that it might be different from what you're used to. And same vice versa. If you're from Wisconsin and about to go to a school in Florida, be prepared for hurricanes, be prepared for warm weather, be prepared for things of that nature. Always be aware of what natural disasters take place in that area. Like if you're going to a school in California, maybe be prepared for earthquakes. Around the South, be prepared for hurricanes, things like that. Look at the campus environment. Is it clean? Is it dirty? Is it loud? Is it quiet? What's the general area around it like? Is it in a really loud, bustling city? Is it in a city that's maybe a little quieter and a lot smaller? Just keep those things in mind. Pay attention to the staff, especially the walking tour guides. They're usually students, and it's really great if you have students because you can ask them questions about what their classes are like, and things like that. Other staff, if you meet like a librarian or someone's checking you in to go on the tour, things like that, you could ask them questions as well. And look at the student body, especially if you're on a school on like Fridays, which is normally days where most students aren't studying. It would be good to see what students are up to. Are they outside? Are they like playing games? Are they throwing frisbees around? Are they at parties? Are they like out going to eat with their friends? Things like that. That's something very important to see what the college culture is like, especially when it's entering the weekend. Admission types. So first we have early decision, which is a binding decision. It is very serious. You are quite literally required to sign a contract, so you can't do this by accident. But if you're accepted, you are required to go. Like you have to withdraw all your other applications and you have to go to this school. So don't do an early decision unless you are absolutely certain. And here's the word, decision. You have decided that this is the place you want to go to. Next is early action, which I would definitely prefer. Early action is a lot less serious. You just apply early and you have a higher chance of getting accepted because the school is like, oh, this person is applying early. They probably actually want to go here. So if you can, I would apply early action. Next is regular decision. It's exactly like it sounds. This is the normal way schools accept people. If you do early decision, if you do regular decision, you still want to try and submit it early, so that the college doesn't run out of space. Next is rolling admission. Rolling admission is very strange. They literally just accept and deny as things come in. So actually, a personal example is that I applied to the University of Pittsburgh. They did rolling decision only. So I applied somewhat early, not super early, I think in like October or something, and I was accepted later on. I have a friend who has way better grades than me who applied but got rejected for submitting an application much later. So just keep those things in mind. If you're applying somewhere with rolling admission, you really want to apply early so that they don't run out of room. Next is auditions and portfolios. If you're going to an art school, they often have different things that they want you to submit. Personally, I did apply to SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Art and Design. I ended up completely deciding on what major I wanted to do. I applied there for illustration, I believe. But I decided to change entirely. So yeah, keep that in mind. They will have you submit a portfolio or an audition or music samples, depending on what type of school you're going to. If you're doing music or some type of other arts, sometimes they'll have you submit one of these. If you're in high school still, it would be a very smart idea to talk to your high school teachers about auditions and portfolios. If you're taking like those art classes, be like, is this something I could put in my portfolio that a college would like? How do I do auditions for colleges? Just ask those questions to your teachers if possible. Next, we have the results. So first is getting rejected. That's pretty simple, that the school doesn't want you in. Deferred means that your application was moved from early action to a regular decision. Um, so yeah, you're basically just getting a second chance. Waitlisted means that you were accepted, but there's not enough room. So someone else is going to have to reject their offer for you to be let in. So you're just kind of in a line until people reject their offers. Next is a conditional acceptance, which apparently is popular in Canada, but basically that means you were accepted on the condition that blank. Normally that's maintaining a certain GPA or increasing your GPA, fulfilling a certain amount of credits, taking a certain class, etc. Those different things would be part of conditional acceptances. And lastly is just a regular acceptance where you were accepted. So next let's talk about commitment. First, what are some good reasons to commit? For me personally, my biggest reason was scholarships. I was given a lot of money to go to the University of Alabama, which I am now a freshman at. It's a good reason to go to a school. If they give you money, don't feel like you're greedy or selfish for wanting to go. It is a very good reason to be going, that you are essentially getting paid to go there. Next is opportunity. If you want to go to a school because you know you'll make connections out of it, and you know maybe you're going to a lot higher end of a school, maybe you're doing film and you want to go to NYU, that is a great reason to go because you know you'll get opportunities heading straight out of it. Next is financial aid. It kind of ties in with scholarships. If they give you a lot of money and enough to go, and you're basically getting paid to go, that would be another good reason. GI Bill, if you have military family, that's another thing that some schools consider, so you can find that out. Next is location. Again, maybe you want to go to a school in a certain city. Maybe you want to go to a school in a certain state because you know that's where you want to end up spending the rest of your life. Or maybe you want to get connections out of that area. That's another good reason to go. And lastly is personal fulfillment. Maybe you've always wanted to go to a certain school since you were a little kid, or all of your family has gone to the school and you're a legacy student. Maybe your brother, sister, like older siblings are going there and you want to be at the same school as your family. That's another great reason to commit. And next is, how do you commit? So most schools will have you pay a certain amount of money as a deposit, and from there you'll receive instructions on what to do. For me personally, it was a $250 deposit, I believe, and then they sent an email explaining me how to do the rest of it with student IDs, housing, medical records, orientation, etc. But certain schools will have different procedures for that. This is often where it kind of gets shaky, and different schools do completely different things. So once you've committed, you'll figure out what to do from there. And lastly, here's just a little section. I'm going to talk a lot more casually about things I wish I would have done. For me personally, I wish I would have applied to more schools in the Big Ten and SEC. I can go over all the schools that I applied to right now, which was Georgia State, Michigan State, Penn State, Savannah College of Art and Design, University of Alabama, and University of Pennsylvania, so UPenn. I believe that's all of them. But I wish I would have applied to a lot more than I did. Out of the Big Ten, Michigan State was my favorite school just overall, but I wish I would have applied to U of M as well as University of Minnesota and Wisconsin. I just think that would have given me the most options out of Big Ten schools because I really like the just kind of energy of Big Ten schools. I applied to the University of Alabama specifically because they sent me a letter saying that if I applied, I would get scholarships, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I wish I would have also applied to some of the other schools here, like maybe UGA. I have family in Georgia, and then Tennessee. I don't think too many of the other ones though. But yeah, I think those probably would have been my three that I should have applied to instead of just the one. I wish I would have applied to HBCUs. As a black student at Alabama, there are not a whole lot of black students in Alabama. However, there are a lot more black students at Alabama than most of the other schools that I've applied to, which has been interesting in different ways, but still, I wish I could have applied to an HBCU. There was a local HBCU fair, but I was busy that day. I wish I would have been able to make time for the HBCU fair and got time to learn more about HBCUs. And I wish I would have applied to places that want me. Another place on top of Alabama that wanted me was actually University of South Carolina. So that would have been another place that I could have applied and gained money from applying to. I wish I would have applied earlier. I didn't get to really apply until, I believe, October, November. I would say probably December at the absolute latest is when people should really be applying. You can apply a lot later. I don't remember when I applied to Alabama actually, but it was a lot later than what I would have liked. I wish I would have taken more time to learn about housing, just on every campus for that matter. When I applied to the University of Alabama, I had no clue how the housing really worked. And I had to have someone explain it to me, like another person who was trying to figure out how housing worked. But they went somewhere and they were able to learn about it. But the housing application process at Alabama is very interesting, where you kind of have, I don't know what the word is, but some people like had favor or something, where if they applied early, they would be able to get housing earlier. So yeah, that's just something I had no clue that's how that worked. I thought everyone was just kind of randomized. So yeah, and I thought all the housing was the same. Pretty much every building is completely different at Alabama, and the styles of dorms are different. Same with some of the other schools. It just completely depends on if they have like communal style, suite style, those types of things. Just all to keep in mind. And then lastly, I wish I would have learned more about different campuses, how the campuses worked, how big the campuses were. I was able to visit Alabama one time. I visited Michigan, I believe, 3 times. Penn State was like probably 5 times. I'm not that far away from them. University of Pittsburgh, I live, not that far, like less than an hour away. So I got to visit a bunch of times. And I think it's very interesting to see campuses when you're touring and then when you're not touring. So like during school hours and after school hours are very different energies from a school. So just keep that in mind as well. I believe I covered everything then. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, please let me know. But yeah, for now, that's all. Thanks for watching.